Hi, and welcome to another episode of Wine and Wisdom. I'm Thomas Le Hoang, and you're listening to the TL podcast, where knowledge is shared and no one takes themselves too seriously.
All right, my turn. I've got a Robert Mondavi private selection Chardonnay from California. It's a 2019, and it grabbed my attention because it's aged in a bourbon barrel. So California, we haven't gone wrong with the California Chardonnay yet.
No,
and
but they were 2018 and 17.
Mate, I didn't have my glasses on at the bottle shop.
So it's not a 2018, obviously.
So it's a 2019.
Oh, I see.
I already said that. And we'll see how we go.
Let's try. All right, so what we're doing this week, guys, we decided we were going to talk about a gentleman who's alive, who's Australian, and who's actually is a big influence on the Australian mindset and ideology, right? And that is Alan Jones.
Yeah.
So I mainly picked him mainly because I think he's very eloquent. I think he speaks to me a bit like probably Cicero was back in the days of the Romans. And when you listen to him, the way he put words together, it makes sense. It actually mesmerizes you. Now, I don't agree with all of his ideas, but, you know, only stupid people agree with everything, right? Right, let's try this. Let's drink this first. Oh, maybe on the other side I can't.
Table's too long.
So, what have you read about Alan?
Oh, well, a lot of the stuff that comes up is a lot of the controversy he's created in the past with lawsuits and different things, inciting riots and so forth. So I've only got negative to go to, unfortunately, but...
Well, you go, man.
I'll go, because I tried. I'm like, let's have dot points, and then I scrolled and I scrolled and I scrolled and I scrolled, and I only ended up with one word, which was power. I'm trying to work out how this guy, where he came from, has got so much influence over the Australian political landscape more than anything. A lot of our ideas and, you know, prime ministers are scared of the guy because of the influence he has, and I was trying to get to the bottom of where it all came from, but it all just piles into one very big, long list. And a lot of achievements, when you talk about the sporting stuff and the things he's achieved, a lot of controversy, a lot of lawsuits, as Chris said, but the man, the power.
He had quite a bit of variety in his background. Like he was in the political side for a little while.
Yeah.
And I think that's potentially where some of it comes from, is that he's actually got insider knowledge. He's not just an outsider giving their opinion like a lot of these broadcasters can do.
Fraser's speechwriter.
Yeah.
Right?
So he's in politics, he's coached the Wallabies, he's coached the Balmain Tigers, he's done a musical, I'm serious, man.
Son of a miner and a farmer.
He's had the
He
highest...
was a tennis champion.
He's had the highest market share in Sydney radio forever and a day, and now he's on Sky News speaking very, very conservative or liberal
He's always been conservative.
doctrine, but then he goes against them, like he gave them an absolute hiding during COVID and the lockdowns there too. But for one man to have procured such an influence over... we've talked on here before about how media controls most things. He's at the top of the tree, man. It's absolutely crazy how that bloke can decide elections, essentially. And,
He's got a very wide listener base, I think, and being on AM, that goes out to a lot of the older crowd. So a lot of those that actually get out there and vote is influencing those people, for better, for worse. But
now, first of all, he studied teaching.
Yep.
He comes from a family where everyone's a teacher. Yep. Okay, so and as you know, teachers have got a lot of power. Teachers actually spend a lot of their time talking down to kids and telling kids what their opinion sometimes is, you know. So I think that to really do well, to excel, because if you look at Alan, he's quite a competitive kind of guy. In his blood, the need to win arguments, the need to make sure that his argument comes across, he's huge. And When you look at how in 1967 he got his degree, and in 1970 he was already working at King's School, the King's School, which is it's like the top of the tree in terms of schooling. I mean, it's not the best school, but it's the GPS level, so therefore it's pretty high. Then after that, he was taken into politics. That's why he left the school to go to Canberra. And you had to think about this, And then after that short stint, when he found out, well, he wasn't really going to get anywhere, well, he takes on sports, and the Wallabies achieve records that they've never achieved since or before. So all of that actually would almost create some kind of God complex into you. You almost think whatever you touch will turn into gold.
Which is what got him into trouble with Balmain in the NRL, because he thought because he'd taken the Wallabies so far, he could do the same thing in a completely different game, and he was failed horribly.
Yeah, but I was listening to a Wayne Bennett talk not so long ago, and Wayne Bennett said, "Don't you ever think that because you spent many years studying one code, that applying it to another code is going to work."
No, that's the God complex, though, that you're talking about. That's what made him think. He was famous for quoting, the Tigers are sick of coming second, and he was saying that now I'm going to take them to the top. Instead, he took them to the bottom, and they punted him. So, but his God complex, I think, it's a very good point you make, because I think that's led to most of the trouble he's got into. To think that he can say a lot of the stuff he says about people in such a public forum and get away with it. I'm sure he doesn't sit there thinking he's going to get sued. I'm sure a big part of him sits there thinking he's untouchable and no one can get me. He's had to pay out a lot of money in lawsuits, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think it said he was, one of the broadcasters that had one of the biggest defamation cases against him. But I think it came back to a mindset thing with him, like everything that he went into, and he did jump around a little bit.
Yeah.
He went into it with, I'm going to succeed. Whether he did or he didn't was a different story. He went in going, I've got this, and he backed himself with it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm always the eternal cynic when it comes to a few things like this, but it comes across to me that he feels protected with his statements, being on a radio station, looking into the personal lawsuits. He's worth apparently over $10 million. He's been fined, in total, I think $500,000 for all his wealth over his entire career. That's a personal, payouts. But the radio station's been fined way more for statements that he's made on air. And he's been fined like fractionally compared to it. So I don't know. I think he's got a bit of a belief that he's shielded somewhat from being on radio. So being held to account by what he says, the radio station's going to be held accountable and not him, number one. And number two, on a lot of the issues that he's created a lot of controversy, quietly he's apologising for it later with phone calls directly to the people. I mean, so...
It's the intention thing.
And that's it. It's the attention. It's sort of self-promotion. I don't think he lives by his beliefs. If you live by the belief, you wouldn't be apologising to the person that you said the comment about.
Well, sometimes your
Choose your
belief is
battles.
overridden by the companies or the
Brings me back to my fact that he believes he's protected.
top management decisions.
So it's
right?
a money thing, and it's not a belief thing. So
Yeah, but here's the thing. In 1985, he goes and takes to UE, I think takes over from John Laws. And then suddenly he goes right to the top of the ratings. And apparently he was the first guy who's ever achieved number one ranking in over 100 consecutive surveys. So you look at the guy, the God complex, I'm sorry, man. It's now, and not only I'm Midas, anything I touch turn into gold, but I just got into here and no one can dethrone me. You now think that your words can actually be used as weapons.
Yeah.
And hence, you do these things. I actually like the fact that sometimes he has his opinion. Right or wrong, sometimes as the God complex takes over, I think his rebuke is no longer journalistic, but very personal. And I think that that's probably wrong. Many times, I think he's done it wrong. Like the last one was Ardern, Jacinda Ardern, when he said what he said, but also with COVID just before that, when he said, well, it's nothing, And yeah, you're entitled to your opinion. And this is the thing. When do you stop opinion from, now I've got the microphone, I'm someone, And now what I'm going to say is going to change the Australian landscape. Because, mate, no matter what, his rating is the highest. So what he says, when he says we don't believe in climate change, there's a lot of people who are going to say, well, Alan says so, I believe so.
So it must be so.
Well, he said COVID was the next, what was it, the health version of climate change. He was relating it back to that. But where do you think it sits in terms of that's his job, so to speak, is actually to be this public figure that speaks on radio and gives his opinion. So where is that fine line between him being able to give his actual opinion over to what is the politically correct opinion? How does that...
I don't think political correct would suggest that if he was not saying what the general populace was thinking, he wouldn't have lasted as long as he had and still wouldn't command the ratings he's commanded. You can't have the highest ratings in Sydney radio if no one's agreeing with what you're saying. In fact, you've got the highest ratings in Sydney radio because more people are agreeing with you than not, essentially. So
Is he
we
catering
talk
to
about the
those
left.
then?
Well, no. Well, we talk about he caters. He does. Well, he does. He caters to the Liberal side of the fence, 100%. But you don't know how much of it's for show and how much of it's his actual opinion. But it also goes to show that as much as the extreme left side of stuff wants to blow up, and we've spoken about it before, all the crap that's going on with now and how careful you have to be when you speak. The quiet undertone that everyone's too scared to get up and say is we don't actually believe in that crap, and here's a guy who's brave enough, in air quotes, to say it out loud, and they keep listening to him.
I think over his career, though, a lot would have changed from when he first started in that sort of a position, or when he first went into radio, to now having social media and lots of platforms on social media that people, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, like all these platforms that people can now get on and say, oh, they've got their own platform to disagree or agree with what he's saying. And when he first started out, it was a very different landscape for him in that industry to be able to have his own platform and do these things, as opposed to now that platform can link into so many other platforms and start so many other conversations other than just his listenership, because people hear through the grapevine about, he's said it, so then they post it on this public forum that then gets all these other people that decide to get behind their keyboard and give their opinion on it, but they've probably never actually heard the original source, or it gets shared across YouTube or Facebook in terms of recordings, and it's this big web now, as opposed to when he would have first started out. It was a much
But he hasn't been shut
more
down.
of a niche.
He hasn't been cancelled, which means he's still bringing in the dollars for the
Still get
people
the ratings, absolutely.
who are doing it.
Well, listen, mate. You can't shut down a topic like this.
His
You
job.
take climate change. You'll always have a big party that's not going to
Well, there's lots of opinions around that.
be for climate change, right? So if you have an important guy who's achieved so much and who now his voice is like a weapon, can go out there and bat for one side. Sky is all as liberal as they come. Well, for sure, he's going to have a spot there. That's why he had to resign from 2GB, but also he was moving towards television more. He's now on Sky all the time.
He's also, but yeah, and having said that though, he's responsible for two of the highest ratings subscription TV shows in history, and one of them was his interview. He's had a couple of different interviews, and they were Sky, but still to outrate everything else ever, that's saying something. Like, I know Sky is all liberal, right, and it bores you to tears that there's never ever another side to the argument. But the fact that he still manages to break records, even in that, there's no left side of politics doing a show that does the same thing. So it beggars, I don't know, man. It's crazy. Do you think it's a good thing for society that one guy with a microphone can have so much power over the...
It's not just him, though. Like we talked earlier, I researched the wrong dude, but I started researching John Laws, and it's not just one dude with a microphone. There's lots of dudes with microphones these days,
Ray Hadley's
and
another one
keyboards,
gets
and
a lot of...
Oh,
that's
yeah,
right.
but he's the
So
king.
there's a
He's
lot
the
of-
top of the pops, and he's the one the politicians are scared of, right?
Yeah.
It's been publicly, they have
because
to get on
he's
his
one
show.
of the only ones that has the in from the politics, from what his insider knowledge.
But if they're scared of him because if he says on his radio show, "Don't vote for this person," people aren't going to vote for that person, and I don't think that is. Well, I don't. My opinion is it can't be a good thing for the world.
Well, that's his opinion that he's sharing, and it's up to the listener to decide.
Yeah, but they don't. We've already talked. People listen to a current affair before they listen to their own eyes.
Yeah,
So
they do.
I'm saying,
But does everyone do exactly what a current affair says to do?
a lot.
They still make their opinion on whether they agree with it or whether they don't.
Yeah.
Oh, look, I think
A lot of people not returning trolleys.
I think his ability to get the public on his side has diminished over the years with social media and so many more outlets being involved that people can get their news from so many other places now.
I don't think it's a good thing ever that a Prime Minister feels he has to call a radio show live on air to apologise for something because he's scared of what the host of that radio show is going to do to his political career, right? That's too much power.
Shows how much pull he's got,
That's too
though.
much power, though. That's what I'm saying. Is this a good thing for the world or not? I can't... Mate, why should our Prime Minister be bowing down to anybody, let alone a radio host?
Oh, well, listen,
Different times.
I like him for his professionalism.
He always wears a tie.
I sent him my book, The Power of You, many years ago when I first got it out. Because I got it out right after my brother's leukemia, and I promised that I was going to send 2 copies to libraries and hospitals in Australia, which we did, and I sent him a copy. And you know that he was the guy who went on the radio and said, he's received this from me, he's read this, and he spoke about the book. And I'm thinking, do you know how many letters and stuff he must receive from everyone? And he's got a team that goes through this. He pays attention to whatever needs to pay attention. This is the consummate professional. No wonder he's number one. No wonder he claimed that position for years.
You weren't part of Cash for Comment, were you, mate?
Someone will give you his comment. Give you cash.
It's like anything, though. He's in an influential position and...
Imagine having the power to make Prime Ministers crawl at your feet. Like, that's too much power.
ScoMo.
It's
People-
too much. They've
people
all
like
had to
it.
do it. Every liberal Prime Minister has had to do it to him.
Yeah, people like him though, and I think you can see from his past history, he's touched the sporting side, he's touched the political side. There was a bit in there about his charity side, so he does a lot to do with charities and like contributing to different charities, giving talks at different organisations. So I think
Inciting riots.
he's done quite a good job of actually diversifying himself, that he's got a broad listener range. He's not just segmented to, I think John Laws was a little bit more of a niche to who his listeners were, but from what I saw from Alan, it was quite broad.
Gives him credibility to know a lot about a lot.
There is no... I don't think any of us here can sit there and argue that he hasn't done a good job. It's whether the job he's doing is good.
Been there for a long time.
He can have influence, and
What is it?
you're using
I
your
know
powers
what you're
for
saying.
good.
I know what you're saying. That is, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
That's all the reading I did. That's all I came up with, mate. I'm like, I can sum this up in 4 words. We talk about it. We've all met people. We say as long as they're using their powers for good rather than evil.
But what happens when the individual really truly believes that he's fighting for something that is right?
Well, then he can use his power for good, in air quotes.
So what if he believes that, human beings, the human impact on climate change is about 0.004, and he truly believes in it? Does he have the right to fight it? Like, who is to say that, he's not entitled to this? The funny thing, it's funny. It's really funny, because when we're sick, we want to believe the doctors and the scientists. But when we're not sick, but they're only talking about climate change, they don't know anything about it, right? I get it. But he's got the right to defend his position.
I'm saying he doesn't, and I haven't used
But my question is, if he truly believed in what he was telling people, would he be on the following week after getting into hot water about what he said, apologising to people?
It's like anything though. Sometimes we say
wants to
things
keep
with
his
such
job.
passion, but not even that. Like, we say things with such passion sometimes that's when you're in the zone and that's what you're talking about. You don't realise that you've just offended someone, and sometimes it comes back to the action and intention.
Put 2 people in a bag, take them out to sea and let them swim back to shore. That's a fairly straightforward and evident sort of statement, right?
No, that was advertising. That was marketing.
To say
Because
to
it
say to
got
people,
the listening ship
I
up,
didn't hear this comment.
right?
to say bikers should go down to Cronulla Station and wait for those certain people to get off the train and teach them what for, it's a pretty straightforward comment. And then sort of to backtrack your statements afterwards because court proceedings and so forth. I don't know. Do they truly believe in him? Is he truly believing in what he's saying, or is he saying that for ratings? Because he's been highly paid for what he does because he has the power that he has.
Yeah.
So
he didn't come across to me like the type of person that was doing it for ratings. It didn't seem like there was a lot of ego in what he did.
He keeps losing in court, though. He keeps but
Because
all
he's
these
on a
defamation
public platform.
Yes, but generally defaming someone means you're wrong about what you said. If you lose a defamation case,
You
it's
could
not
be wrong,
because
but it
you were
could be your
right.
opinion.
Hey,
It could be wrong, but it could be your opinion.
he's wrong a lot.
Keep it to yourself.
He's wrong. He's been wrong a lot from all the cases that have been won against him. So then, if you're throwing all that stuff out there and you're constantly wrong, is that a ratings push?
Just recently, what he said about Jacinta Ardern to Scott Morrison. Ram a sock down her throat and give her a couple of backhands so she understands who's in power.
Yeah, look.
And let the big boys do that. I mean, what a misogynist. I mean, seriously.
Well, that's why he's no longer on radio.
Well, that's exactly. I mean, seriously. I mean, I think some of his statements.
That probably was taken, but that was taking a little bit too far.
That's last year. I mean, in August. I mean, it's not even 12 months ago. So I don't know.
But it's not about.
I
don't know. No, but you don't have to.
We've
got to take.
But I'm him talking about.
Yeah, but let's talk about the pragmatic. Let's take the pragmatic approach. Is it good for the world or bad for the world?
Bad.
Is he smart for what he's doing or not? It's not about whether you like him or not. No one here, I think, sits there and agrees with some of the stuff he said. Right. About the only time I've ever agreed with him was when he was talking about the COVID stuff, and that's because I was on the same bandwagon. But
let's put the question further. Let's put the question further. Okay.
Yeah.
Alan Jones, Martin Bryant.
What?
What?
Who would you keep alive?
What? How do you compare that?
Question without notice. What?
I'm just asking. So because we keep on talking about the guy's got so much power and blah, blah, blah. I'm saying he's using his words as weapons. He's not killed everyone. He's putting through his opinion. Martin Bryant's killed how many people? 15, whatever, down in Port Arthur in Tasmania. Okay? So, have a look. One's used bullets. The other one's using words to make his point. No, guys, we're making some stuff here. Let's have a look at reality. Is that how we compare him to, or who we compare him to, or do we have the right to free speech?
We have the right to
It
free
doesn't
speech.
matter whether we've got the microphone. It doesn't matter if we've made a live to get to the top of the ladder, which he has done.
100%.
Right? I guarantee 26 million people would want to get there too.
Yeah. So on that rhetoric, you said everyone's got the right to free speech, and that's how
I'm asking.
Okay.
Which one would you pick?
Well, definitely Alan Jones. I mean, obviously killed directly.
Intention versus action.
Right.
No, but his ideas about climate change could have killed many other people.
Everyone has the right to free speech. I'm not denying.
If you have a
That's what
social
we're doing
media
here right
account,
now.
you've got a
We're
right
gonna-
to.
That's what we're doing here right now.
No, that's the thing. I'm just
Absolutely.
asking whether it's my point on it is this guy has managed to put himself in a position where he has the leaders of our country bowing down to him rather than vice versa. I can't see that being a positive thing for the country.
You're absolutely right, Ken.
Because if the guy does have a God complex, there's no denying his achievements, and to be able to get yourself to that level, show me how to do it. I'm sure I'll be much nicer when I get there. But said no one ever. But that's all we're talking about here. It doesn't have to be whether you like him
Does
or
he
don't
still
like him
have
or
that
agree with
he-
what you say.
Look,
He's managed to do it. He's managed to get there by doing those things.
Does
That's
he still
the
have
scary
that power
thing.
today where he is, like with, would you say, Sky News it was with his now?
No, I think that his powers has probably diminished.
Okay.
I think that radio is very easy to reach the masses because most people who are at home can go on the radio, but most people are on the road can be it straight away. Where
You're not
television,
watching Fox
you have
unless
to
you're a
be
Liberal
there
supporter.
at that time.
It wasn't just ScoMo though. It was like
was all of them.
Barrow. It was the
Yeah.
police commissioner. There was a lot.
That was all
He
of
did
them.
it.
There was a lot.
It was
There
all
was
of
a
them. But
lot.
now, so Thomas is right because you're not
Bathrooms
watching
in England.
You're not watching Sky News unless you're a staunch Liberal supporter or a Liberal side of politics. You just wouldn't watch it.
I'm One Nation,
Or One Nation. So his audience has greatly diminished.
watching
but
Channel 1.
there's people who
It's a
will
different
take
focus
over.
audience now.
Only Asian that can't use chopsticks. Seriously, no.
But I keep on saying to people, I'm Belgian.
can't.
I'm
Can't use
Belgian.
chopsticks.
No.
I was eating lunch the other day. Went to a pho, Vietnamese food, right?
And he asked for a fork.
And he asked for a fork and spoon.
And,
I'm sitting there going, the wog's eating these noodles.
What about the bus he's throwing you under? Mate, what has he done to you? He didn't say he liked the man or agreed with him. We're just talking about him. You're just throwing
He's on the
Thomas
One
under the
Nation,
bus.
mate. And I just
Yeah, well, that's
I
because
thought it was quite
Pauline.
funny.
It's an edict from Pauline. You must use fork.
Fork in hell, mate.
Fork off.
So let's go around the table. What do you think of Alan?
I don't like the guy.
Okay.
I think he's on the liberal side of politics, but I don't like the guy.
Okay.
Just
Cam.
I think what he's been able to do, any dictator in any country would be proud of. He makes Saddam Hussein proud. Yeah, I don't have to agree with what he says. We've got to look at it from an external point of view with, what's he achieved, and he's got to the top of the tree. So
I was achieved.
good on you, Al, old mate.
Yeah, look, I don't know that much about him because before this point I was researching the wrong bloke. But from
Good
what
on you, mate.
Valvoline,
2 weeks
you know
ago
what I
you were
mean.
not here. This week you're at the wrong place. I mean,
She thought she'd make up for it by studying. She didn't realise till yesterday it was the wrong guy.
I'm only human. I just think his career path and what he has achieved is impressive.
Yeah, that's true.
Everyone's always, like, no matter what position you hold, whether you be the trolley collector or the cleaner or the Alan Jones or the Prime Minister, everyone's got an opinion on what you do these days, and everyone has a public platform to comment on what you do. So I just think for what he's achieved, it's a really, really good thing.
As far as a feat of achieving excellence in whatever you're doing, you can't knock it. Whether we agree with it or not, it's not for us, mate.
100%.
You can't.
I agree.
Yeah. So what do you think about him, mate? You chose him.
the reason I chose
it's a
him
wrong
is
question.
that
What
to
do we
me,
think about him?
he is no different to Ayrton Senna, to Winston Churchill, to anyone in terms of a human being understanding that he's only here for less than 100 years and lives a life to reach his ultimate ability. And I think that that's the reason I chose him, because I knew the panel here wouldn't like him. But I think that we have to be able to study that the human aspect of achievements are the same, whichever.
You've got to be able to take your
What is
personal
he,
He's
biases
70
out of
or
it.
79 or
He's
something.
80, yeah, he's 80 this
so
year.
it's
He's going to be 81 this
to
year.
be still doing what he's
Oh, he's
doing
80
at that
already.
age.
Yeah.
15th of April.
And
He
so,
never got married, so he hasn't aged a bit.
Sorry, he's 80 this year, yeah.
He's got a 22-year-old boyfriend. That's why.
And so for me, no, that's
Love
his
is
personal life. He does whatever he is, mate.
Absolutely.
And if he's still attracting a 20-year-old boyfriend,
Good luck to him.
shit, mate, the guy's good. You know, to me, I think that sometimes we stop at studying success and we start having our judgment.
Yeah, that's the problem.
And I think that that's what I wanted to outline here, is that if you can study goodness in everyone and have the ability to think what they are is who they are. They do the things that they believe is probably right to them. Just like if they look at what we're doing, many of them are thinking probably us doing this and drinking the wine at the same time is wrong. But that's our prerogative. Yeah. The fact that we believe in the line in vino veritas, meaning the more wine, the more it's going to be truthful. Well, that's our show, right? And that's the only thing that I wanted to demonstrate with Alan Jones.
You've got to be able to take the emotion out of it. Cameron Smith is one of the most hated footballers ever to play the game, but he's also, no one can argue with, the greatest footballer to ever play the game. So it's taking personal opinion out of it and being able to recognise the achievement for what it is, which in Alan Jones's case is out of this world.
Perfect. Any other opinion? Thank you very much. See you, Alan, very
Bye,
soon.
Alan.
Bye-bye.